Hey everybody, how's it going? I am going to talk about Lemuria. This is something. If I heard about this before, I honestly don't remember it. Uh, oh, we got plenty of those. Okay, and it kind of fits in maybe with it if it's true. You know, it is what it is. But it kind of fits in with Atlantis, and and again, I honestly don't. I think there's more evidence for Atlantis, but I have to admit that one of the videos, and I gotta tell you, um, there's a ton of stuff out there, and it's all over the boards. Like when you read about Atlantis, when you hear about Atlantis, there that's a little bit all over, but only on certain things. Um, like I was watching something and they were talking about Atlantis being in Africa or something like that. Well, and again, I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm saying I don't know. But that's kind of on the fringe a little bit. And that was one of the videos I watched because like some of these videos they're talking about both. And like the first one I watched, and it looks like I watched most of this one. From what I remember, it wasn't all that good. Go watch it yourself. But it's Lemuria, the lost continent of a super extraterrestrial civilization, and that is the channel Consciousness. And this one, and again, I think in light of some of the stuff that has come out by the government and people that are, some of the people out there who seem a little more credible than others, some of the stuff that's coming out from these guys, I think we honestly need, I think we honestly need to take a look and maybe be a little less skeptical. And because some of the stuff that these people are talking about, it makes me think of that one guy. And I think I don't trust him, but I did like the one thing he said that the government when they're looking at this stuff, they refer to certain areas as WSFM, weird science and frickin' magic. And they when they it was one of the episodes of Skinwalker Ranch, they had, and I think he's a douchebag. He's a Republican. I don't think he's a fair guy. I think he's done stuff that in a proper world he may be investigated for. He's not going to, but I think he's done stuff that if we lived in a just society, he'd be investigated and maybe either thrown out of office or at least put in jail. But I could be wrong. But he seemed genuinely serious when he went there. He's the Utah Senator Mike Lee. And I gotta admit, and like Marco Rubio was kind of the same way. And I don't know when he went there, but there was a moment where like I think this would have been last year. I think my mom would have been alive when this happened. They had the House hearing, and when it was over, they briefed Congress. I can't remember if it was both houses or just the Senate, but I heard this from some of the senators. They came out of that briefing, and there was one or two of them, and they were briefed in a classified manner. They couldn't talk about, and the one guy came out and all he said was, I think the American people deserve the truth. That was his response to the classified briefing. And Marco Rubio, and I've mentioned this before, he was talking about some of the people that have come in and testified in front of Congress, in front of his committee. And he really seemed a little shook. And him and Senator Gillibrand, you get fucking lunatics in the House. Look at Marjorie Taylor Greene and some of the other dipshits they got in there. Usually by the time you get to the Senate, and there are exceptions to this now, and I'm sure if you did an exhaustive search, you'd find Democrats that were fucking lunatics in the Senate, or lunatics on certain subjects. But it's almost exclusively a thing in the House. And, I remember this back when Donahue used to be on. I was like in junior high or grade school. Every now and then you get one of these wingnuts, Democrat or Republican, they'd get elected and they'd fucking just start throwing fire bombs and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And usually after 2 years, maybe 4, they were voted out. They got somebody a little more mentally stable to run against them. And they were gone. They didn't usually last. That's not the case anymore. I think the internet fucked that up. These people that used to be crazy didn't have as much of a voice. Well, now they can reach out to all their urine-soaked sister-fucking fans out there on social media or local TV or, the fucking OAN or Newsmax or all the other bullshit out there. There's propaganda channels to push their lie. And that's how we ended up with a terrorist attack on the Capitol a year ago, January 6th, because they're pushing this nonsense. Well, the benefit of it is this UFO stuff can be pushed too. And there's I'm sure there's nonsense out there. I'm trying to keep a more open mind in light of recent events. Like when you've got the military basically saying, yeah, these 3 videos that came out, they're real. We don't know who's doing it, And you've got all these people that are coming before Congress, and Congress is starting to, make noise like, we're pretty sure they're lying to us. We're pretty sure they're intimidating our witnesses. These are all indication that, maybe we're going to get to something. And, but when Senator Mike Lee was out there at the Skinwalker Ranch, he was like Marco Rubio. He seemed genuinely distraught. And he was asking, he's like, well, the stuff you're seeing, he goes, I've been briefed on this. I was asked to come and talk to you guys. And he goes, couldn't this be like from another country? Like one of our allies or one of our enemies? And that scientist, Dr. Taylor, just matter-of-factly said, well, yeah, if they've like leapfrogged us by like 50 years or more in physics and scientific development. And the look on his face said it all. It was bothering him. I think he knew Travis's background, and he knew he wasn't a nut job. Knew he was very credible. He knew he was very competent. And he really seemed bothered by what was going on. And I think that's a good thing. I think these guys being afraid of what is going on, I think that's an absolutely good thing. Maybe that'll help us out. Okay, we got... Okay. And I want to do the little call to action I got, and if you want to know more, go watch. I'm like only once a month I'm gonna like really dive into it, but the call to action right now, Reach out to the people you vote for at every level. And if you don't mind, ask them to legalize assisted suicide. I watched my mom die in hospice, and the hospice people were great. I got no complaints. But I got health issues and I don't know. It could be 1 year, it could be 20 years. I don't know. But at some point, unless I make some kind of a miracle recovery, I'm gonna be in something similar or maybe worse to what my mom was going through with her cancer. And I can't work right now. I've even tried streaming, and I'm just no good at it, and that's fine. But I just want some better options than being homeless and dying of exposure. I really do. I Several months ago I got lightheaded and fell and just shattered my ankle. If you've watched any of my streams, you realize that occasionally I have a bad day, and I try to avoid those. I really do, but nobody's gonna hire that. If somebody, you know, if somebody like wants me to work at home, I'm gonna have to be productive. And if they're counting on me to get something done, and I'm gonna fucking fall down and break my ankle, or my back, or my arm, or whatever, because who knows what it'll be the next time. Um, they're just not. If they're counting on you to perform clerical duties, which is about the only thing I could do. And if they're expecting you to do that, and quite often you're gonna get lightheaded and forget what you're doing, or you're gonna make mistakes, or whatever the fuck it is, nobody's gonna want to pay you for that. And even if I do get on disability, I'm not sure it's gonna be enough to, I mean, really, if all it's gonna do is allow me to eat and sleep, what the fuck's the point? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Um, because I'm not going to be able to make what I was making when I was working. I'm pretty sure I was drugged or poisoned for bringing up quality issues at work and stuff when I worked at GM. And if it's not going to pay for me to have a life, then what's the point of living? And I'm not mad. I'm mad at the people who did it. I really hope they fucking die. I know no fucking qualms about that. The shit my sister's doing over the estate, as far as I can tell, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. If her and everybody involved in her fucking dies, I'd feel good about that. I'd be fucking happy as a camper. But I don't think it's gonna happen. It'd be nice if, the fates, karma or whatever, had her drop dead of a fucking heart attack the next day. That'd be great. I think that'd be outstanding. The people that fucking did this to me, I'd love to see them burn to death in their house. I just don't think it's going to happen. And, so, please do that. And then the other thing, and this is going to bring us into the next topic, please write your congressman, at least at the federal level. I don't know if it would do any, unless they're running for office. I don't think it would do any good to talk to your local ones. This, I think, has to be done at the federal level. But please reach out to them and let them know that they really, really need to investigate the UFO UAP thing. Seriously, they need to do it. And because they really had a good head of steam, and some of the people that really seem to be hard charging this, they had some stuff recently where they really seemed depressed. I'm not gonna lie, they really seemed to be depressed. They seemed to be taking it kind of hard. And there were some people who cover this who are reputable journalists, or at least in my opinion they are. They're actually worried about it, and they said that if some of this stuff doesn't get done this year, it might be years, and might be years before anything happens. And I really think we need to get to the bottom of this. That would be nice. So please write them, tell them they really need to investigate this. Because here's the thing, and if anybody tells you for a fact that they're going to find X, Y, or Z, I think they're lying to you. We really don't know. But here's the thing. All I can tell you is you're gonna find something. And they had one military guy and he was an investigator for some of this stuff, and he basically let them know that as a matter of fact, money is being misappropriated. So again, could we find aliens? Yes. Could we find alien civilizations that we have communicated with secretly and are working with? Yes. Could we find that all of that is a hoax? And the federal government has been running this like clandestine misinformation campaign to make people think UFOs were real so that they could fucking steal a whole bunch of taxpayer money and piss it away on military stuff or governments. Oh yeah, I think that's absolutely possible too. I can't remember the guy's name, but I did a story on, because I had just found it, but I did a story on that where it really appears there was a guy who created a company, became a military contractor, and they pulled that shit on him. They made him think that he was tracking real UFOs and all the other bullshit, and he ended up in a fucking nut house over it. So do I think they could absolutely find out, that some bullshit? Yeah, I think they could, but here's the thing, and this is why they need to do it, because that guy said that money's being misappropriated. And he said, I can't tell you in open hearings, but he goes, I can tell you after the fact, and he reported it. And when he reported what he was telling Congress to the Inspector General, the Inspector General didn't say, "Oh, this guy has PTSD, you can't trust him." They didn't say, "Oh, this guy's a fucking lunatic." The Inspector General told Congress, I talked to him, I investigated his claims. He's credible. You should take him seriously. That was the military's own, or the government's own Inspector General, and that's what his job is. And he basically said, "Yeah, this guy's credible. You should listen to him." So I think we should too. And but he what do we got here? Oh, I left these. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go and fill them in. But he basically told him, and then, the one congressman, and I'm sure he knows more about it than me and you and everybody else that's listening, the one or two people that are going to check this out. But he basically said that they have audited the Pentagon, I think every year since a certain time period, and they every time they audit them, they're like $1 billion short. I think he said it was a minimum of billion with a B, not million, but billion with a B. B as in boy. Our Oscar Bravo. And he said they're always off by that. We have no idea where that money's going. Like, and I keep saying that this is like an Iran-Contra level of crime. And on some level it is, but it's worse than Iran-Contra, because at least with Iran-Contra, we knew what they were spending the money on. This isn't like, oh, well, we've got millions and millions of dollars on this weapon system, and we lost, a couple $100. Like the change you lose in your car. But I got news for you, and I think everybody can agree with me on this. If you did your taxes and you were like $1 billion off on what you owed, like if you basically said that you didn't owe them anything, and the IRS looked at it and said, "Oh no, you owe us $1 billion. You made so much money." You have to. I don't think they would accept it. That oh well, so what? So we shouldn't accept it from the Pentagon. We should not accept it from the military. I got a feeling you're going to at least find gross incompetence, maybe enough to put somebody in jail, but you're probably going to find criminal activities. So you got to write them and tell them to investigate this UFO UAP stuff, regardless of tell them if you think it's nuts, if you got a fucking hard on for the Pentagon or whatever, because there's somebody I think he's from Ohio, Wright Patterson Air Force Base I think is in his district. It was reported by that one journalist that he flat out said, "Oh, we can't do this. It would be embarrassing for the military." Well, I got news for you. It should be embarrassing for the military. Well, anyways, um, get that done, and then but I was watching this thing on Lemuria, and this one here, if I'm not mistaken, this one was kind of wild, but maybe go check it out. It's only like 13-20 minutes or 13 minutes 20 seconds. And then the other one, and I think, and I'm kind of, I got a blur of what all of these were. And to the best, I will separate out which ones were which, but a lot of these have just merged into one topic, and there's a lot of stuff I'm probably forgetting. Don't trust me, verify it. If you find this interesting, go listen to the videos yourself or look into it yourself. If you do trust me, at least verify, because I'm doing the best I can, but who knows? And I got to be honest, I'm not saying any of this is true. This is the stuff I saw, but at least with the Atlantis stuff, there's some consistency on maybe a lot of it. Maybe not all of it, but a lot of it. But with Lemuria, what we're talking about, I'm going to kind of go off on something because it's more of a personal thing. And I thought of it when I was watching this, and I forgot about it until just now. Um, in the talks of it, and I think this might have been the first video, they talked about how they think Lemuria was another continent like Atlantis. And it was in the Pacific Ocean. Atlantis was in the Atlantic Ocean. And Lemuria is their name. They've also been referred to as Mu or Mur or something like that. And there's other stories. It's kind of like that thing I was telling you about in a previous one where you had what they called, I think it was Graham Hancock, he called them the primordial something or other. And when you read the stories about them, it's basically Atlantis. I think it was in like northern ancient Egypt, and they referred to this race of creatures as the primordial something or other. Well, when you read about them, they were like an advanced species that lived on an island. They were hit by a meteorite, and the whole thing flooded, and all this other shit. Well, it sounds, and he goes, when they actually dove into it, it sounded like the Atlantis story. And so, you got that. But what this one is, it was a continent, big one, and it sort of bridged Australia, Africa, and then it went up to Asia, maybe India. And it was like, so it was like, it basically was shaped like this. It was shaped like an upside down T-ish sorta. And they also said that explains, there's certain, I think it was the lemur. It explains the lemur because they find the lemur on 2 or 3 different continents. They don't fucking swim. And so they don't understand how these lemurs got to these different continents. And they said, well, if this land bridge existed, it would explain how they got there. And then the other thing with it is, when they were talking about it, they said that Easter Island is a remnant of it, and Hawaii was part of it. These were on multiple different videos. Like one of them, it said one thing, and then the other one they were saying that Easter Island, Hawaii, and some of these other island chains that are out there were like Easter Island was the easternmost part of it. Hawaiian Islands were like the northernmost part of it, and so on and so forth. But the other thing that was brought up is that the people that live there might have been blue skinned or aqua colored skin. One of the videos said they had, I mean, they're all over the place. Said they had 4 arms and 3 eyes, 2 in the front of their head, 1 in the back. When you read some of the uh, Indian culture of like their gods or their history, like the Celtics or the Norse mythology or whatever, they've got these blue creatures with multiple arms, and they're saying, well, yeah, that's what these were, and they and also they did not eat like we did. They did not have it. They basically they lived off of like natural energy. Again, I don't know. I uh, I think with all the shit that's been going on, we need to keep an open mind. And maybe this stuff is nuts. Maybe some of it's nuts. I don't know. But there has been so much shit in the past that they said was a myth. It wasn't real, and then they found it. And the other thing is like that one guy from Gaia. He was talking about it was the Atlanteans and then the ancient Athenians or something like that. They were the Greek gods, and then the Atlanteans were like the Kronos and all that. And then one of the other videos, they were saying that these two cultures lived peacefully together for like 200,000 years. And then oh God, I'm trying to think of the Anunnaki or something like that, or basically the Sumerian gods. And one of the videos said that there were like 5 or 6 different ancient races that were all living on the earth together. Well, maybe Atlantis was one, the ancient Athenians were another, this Lemurians were another, the Anunnaki were another. But they said the Anunnaki kind of corrupted the Atlanteans, and the Atlanteans started to getting, and I've heard this was something from the Gaia where they said that the Atlanteans started researching weapon tech, and when they flipped out, the ancient Athenians were the only ones that could stand up to them. Well, this one here was saying that these Lemurians were the ones that stood up to them. Well, maybe they both did, and I don't know, but this is what they were talking about, and you both continents sunk, and then they were talking about like by Cuba, they have underground cities, and they were showing pictures of it. They looked like pyramids, and they said they got those there. Those were part of Atlantis. They were saying, and they said that people who understand this stuff looked at because they're so far underwater near Cuba, and they said it would have taken a minimum of 50,000 years for those to sink like that. And that thing we were talking about the other day, the Denovians or whatever, those bracelets, the experts that have looked at it, if they are experts, they think that those things were made like at least 50,000 years ago. And I don't know. I just find all this stuff fascinating. And well, anyways, he's one of my martial art instructors. He was I go to I used to go to seminars when I was healthy. He's a really good guy, and I got to be honest with you. I think I almost like the history parts of his seminars because he would do these seminars, and he wouldn't just show you what you came there for. He would basically do a breakdown on the culture and the history, and I found that shit fascinating. When I was still healthy, I finally made it. I had a good enough job. I had the money. I made it out to his school a couple years in a row. And one of the times I was out there, I think I bought one book there, and I think I found another one at, I might have bought both of them there. I could be wrong on this. But one of them was the Grandmaster or Grand. I don't remember these titles because the thing is, it isn't like karate or jiu-jitsu or where everybody has the same fucking system, you go there like you have your black belts and your brown belts and and so on and so forth down to yellow and white belts. The Filipino martial arts, if you get into it, it's a little bit of a mess. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It is just is what it is. But um, some of the people in there, and some of them I can't even remember to tell you, but like you have Grandmaster is a term that's used by some. Uh, and with the Chinese, with the Jeet Kune Do and the Chinese stuff, you have Sifu and Sigung and all that. And some of the ones they use the term guru. That would be another term for your instructor, a guru. And then you Grandmaster's another one, and it just depends on which system. You have to understand that in the Philippines, this was actually a story. In the Philippines, you don't necessarily have one root language like in America or Germany or whatever. The story we heard, you learn the language. Well, if you're in one area, a certain word might mean do you know, like a good question to ask somebody, do you know this, can you teach me this? Well, on another island it might be some derogatory comment about pubic hair. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think that was the gist of it. I think that was actually what they were trying to teach you when they told us that. um but hang on, one, two, three, four. And when he researched this stuff, because again, Bruce Lee, when he studied stuff, my understanding is this, and I think this is actually in his autobiography. There was this Japanese, or not Japanese, there was this Chinese guy. He knew some style of a martial art, some system or whatever, and I wish I could remember the name of it. I wish I could remember the name of the guy to give him credit. And I don't even know if the book I'm reading is still in. Some of the stuff that was originally done, like right after Bruce Lee died, the stuff isn't in print anymore. And they have completely redone the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. And I have both copies somewhere around. If I can find them somewhere, I own the original. I think it's a reprint, but I own the original one they did, and I own the remastered version of it. Which, from the standpoint of studying it, it was done a lot better that way. The thing I didn't like about it, and this is just my opinion. You're welcome to your own. But when they originally did that, Bruce Lee's widow was in charge. And the guy that originally did that, and what it was, what they did was, it was kind of like the Bible. What they did was they took all the stuff that was laying around and put it into one book, because it was never meant to be published as a book. The Bible's the same way. You had all these individual little short stories that were written in the New Testament. And at some point in the Old Testament, my understanding is that for like 1,000 years, it was like a verbal story that was just passed on. And if you were going to screw it up, that's probably where it was. But actually, one, two, three. But when he did that, it was right in that book, regardless of what they're doing now. It was right in that book where the guy, and every book that Dan published back then had a little comment from Bruce Lee's widow. And she was basically thanking Dan, not anybody else. She was thanking Dan personally for keeping Bruce Lee's art and legacy alive. And she got old and she retired and she was no longer in charge of the estate, and all that changed like overnight. And to me, it was kind of a shitty thing to do after all those years. Again, it's like you can't erase that. To me you can't erase that. You can't just magically erase it and then act like he's shit. But again, it's an opinion, and you are welcome to have your own. But he wrote in that book, that he had all these notes from Bruce Lee, and he personally was thanking Dan and Dan's students for showing him, making it come alive, so he understood what it was, because he had no clue. And he thanked him, for his work in explaining, making him understand what all that stuff meant, so he could do the book a little better. And a lot of that is just, but anyways, my understanding is, and I think I got this from him, I saw an interview of him. I don't know if it was on one of the video collections I bought, or if it was at a seminar, or if it was something he did for that ended up on the internet. But what happened was Bruce Lee started becoming aware of all these martial arts over in Southeast Asia, the Philippines, and that. And I guess he told Dan, hey, you go check it out. Let me know if there's anything good in there. And so, these people act like, oh, well, he betrayed this and he betrayed that. Well, the way they made it sound, he was basically just doing what he was asked to do. And, and he made a comment the one time. He goes, well, all these people that are saying this or that or the other thing, he goes, they don't know. He goes, you got a lot of these people that are out there saying, well, Jeet Kune Do is this or Jeet Kune Do is that. And he goes, they don't know the whole system. He goes, they only know what they were shown, and they don't know, like, I think he even admitted he maybe didn't even know everything. But Bruce Lee was showing a lot of it to him, maybe all of it to him. And he basically said the one time that he got into C-Lot because, Bruce Lee, I guess, gave him a C-Lot book. And I think he wrote something in it. If I'm remembering it right, there was like an inscription that, Bruce Lee put on it and gave it to him. And he basically wanted him to go check this stuff out and see what it was. Well, he did that. Well, he doesn't do what Bruce does. Because to get back to that thing, there was a story, I believe it was in his biography, where he found this guy, and he found that if you wanted to learn, like, praying mantis or white tiger crane kung fu or whatever, because he learned this with the Wing Chun. The Wing Chun instructor wouldn't really teach him because he wasn't pure-blooded Chinese. He still worked with him a little bit. There are photos of him doing chi sao and some stuff with Yip Man. But for the most part, what he did is he got one of his top students, like the second or third guy at the school, to teach Bruce Lee. Well, Bruce Lee learned a good lesson from that. And what he found was if there was an art that he wanted to learn something about it, sometimes going to the top guy was a dead end. But if you went to somebody like one or two steps down, they'd train you, And one of the things he did here is this guy wanted to learn how to dance, because I guess his wife liked to dance or something like that, and he couldn't dance. And Bruce Lee promised him that, well, as long as you're teaching me your art, I'll teach you how to dance. And he said that Bruce Lee, this was a quote from him in that book I read, if I remember it right, and if not, I apologize. But he said that Bruce Lee pretty much mastered what he knew about the art in like 3 or 4 sessions. And it was faster than he could learn the foxtrot or something like that. And he kind of laughed. He goes, yeah, it was just kind of funny. I thought, yeah, it'll take him a while to get this. And he goes, he mastered it so quick. He goes, I couldn't even learn how to foxtrot before he was on his way. And, well, anyways, Dan went and researched this stuff. And I remember this. This was something he was talking about, and I wish I could remember the name. Uh, he named his blend of sea lot after, because what he did was he learned sea lot from one guy, and what he does, he would bring these people in, they would train him, and he would basically throw them out there for people to see. And I think one of, I don't know if this was probably the second or third sea lot instructor that he was showcasing, and it was Pendeker Paul de Toise, if I got the name right. Uh, he was, God, I think him and his brother were the top two guys. One of them was more of a fighter, the other one was more of a technician. But he basically was learning sea lot from that guy. And we went to a camp. He was the guy there. He really, I mean, I wish I was half, and again, this is all a character failure on my fault, but I really wish that I was half as much of a gentleman as that Pendeker Paul de Toise was. That guy was just so amazingly cool. And it's not my nature. It's a character flaw. I'm not even half the man he is because of it. I get that. I'm okay. I'm at peace with it. But he was just such an unbelievably nice guy. He really was. And so anyways, not sure. I think I'm just going to put lights down. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, because there was a seminar, this was like one of the first seminars I ever went to him on. And the only reason I remember this is back then you could actually get videotapes of the seminars. And because I'm horrible at taking notes, and I didn't want to have to try and remember this stuff. If I was sitting there watching, I might have been able to remember it a little better back then. But I was actually physically doing this shit. And it was basically a way, but there were people that were fucking selling this shit and putting it out there. Because this was all before the internet. When the internet came around, that kind of fucked it up for everybody, because you'd get somebody to get one of these and then they'd throw it up on the internet. And, you can say what you want, but this was his living. His living was going around doing these. That was part of his living. He had an income from that. So these people basically bootlegging it and putting it on the internet or whatever, or getting a copy of it and duping it and selling. I'm not sure you could blame these guys. So that dried up. But he was teaching sea lot at that seminar, and I think he was calling it Bursalot was the name of it. And it was he said that the instructor, I think it might have been a woman, he was her first non-Muslim student, is the way he explained it to us. And but he went probably to 3, 4, 5 different sea lot instructors, and he learned. And then he put it all through the JKD process, where he, absorbed what was useful, rejected what was useless, and he made something that was entirely his own. And then he had a name for it, and the reason he gave it that name is he researched whether it be, Filipino, Indonesian, Southeast Asia. Well, he researched all these martial arts: Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, India, Indonesia. And what he started learning as he was learning the history of these arts was that he was starting to, and again, he probably wouldn't have got it from any one source, but when he was absorbing all of this shit from all these different continents and cultures and whatnot, he came to the conclusion that there was some kind of a super society, a super continent, basically like an Atlantis. It wasn't Atlantis, but something like Atlantis. There was this super society, some advanced culture that had been forgotten. And he was doing this before this shit. He was doing this before they found a lot of these megalithic structures. And I don't know, because of my health and everything else, the money issue, the health issue, and all that bullshit, and my memory issue. But if I had the ability to ever talk to him again, and my head was clear, and I remembered this shit, I would basically ask him, "Have you looked into?" God, it's the megalithic site that's in Cambodia. I might have the name wrong, but I usually don't like to use the name because I get this one. I think it's Angkor Wat or Göbekli Tepe. The Tepes I think are near Afghanistan, but it's either Angkor Wat, Göbekli Tepe, or there's other ones. But it's this mega site that they found near Cambodia. Well, originally they thought they found this big city, and what it is, it's the temple. And my understanding, if I'm not mixing it up with the other one, they found a city the size of London buried underground. And that first thing they found was just the temple to the city. And it's fucking huge. It might be a temple, but it's the size of a city apparently. And this thing, they figure, was probably like between 20 and 50,000 years ago minimum. And, I would just like to know, have you looked into any of this? Have you looked into Lemuria? Have you looked into these megalithic cities that are over there in Asia, near Asia in Afghanistan? Because, when I was watching that today, that I hadn't thought about that in probably a few years, maybe even a decade. It's been a while. And when they were talking about this big continent that bridged Australia, Asia, and Africa, I'm thinking, well, this might be what he was talking about. And then there was other things they said, and again, it's not proof, it's not hardcore proof, but it's circumstantial evidence, because they said they never understood, they never had any reason why. I think it's Portugal, but there was one country who had language similarities with Greeks. I told you about those. I think it was the lemurs. There's other animals too that these are creatures that don't swim, definitely can't swim in ocean, and they could not figure out why they were on these different continents. Well, if there was a land bridge, there was a continent that was a land bridge, that makes everything make sense. Might not be what happened, but it is, at least makes it make sense. And but that was just kind of cool for me to, and I'm thinking, yeah, I wish I could ask him about that, because I would really like to get his take on it, because again, he's done the work. He's got so much more knowledge on this than I do. It would just be interesting to get in. The thing is, I'd probably forget it and all this other bullshit. But it would definitely be interesting. It really would. And but anyway, so yeah, they were that's like a thing on this, and I really don't know. I absolutely really don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and take this out. But well then anyways, let me get this back up. You go to now this one here I found to be really good. It was the Y Files, Atlantis Rises, Lemuria Falls, The War That Sank a Continent. I don't know if any of it is true, but I will give you this. The Y Files, I've watched a couple of these so far. They seem to really dig stuff up. Whether it's true or not, they're basically just passing on the rumors to you. but they are letting you know, they're passing it on, and there was a lot of shit there that I found incredible. Like one of the things they said on there, and it's Atlantis rises, Lemuria falls, the war that sank a continent. It's on the Y files. Uh, they were talking about there was some kind of a nuclear war between Atlantis and Lemuria, and that's what wiped out. That's what sank Atlantis. And then he talked about where Atlantis moved on. Like there was a group that went to America. There was another one that went, I think, to Egypt. And there were three different groups from Atlantis that struck out, and they met with limited success. They said Lemuria recovered, but when they rebuilt in hiding. And I'm just passing it on. I'm not claiming that any of this is true. I really don't know one way or the other. But he said they rebuilt their society under a mountain in California. I don't know. I I literally don't know. Some of this stuff just seems fucking crazy to me. But again, with some of the stuff that has come out, I don't know. I think maybe we need to keep a little bit of an open mind on this shit. That's all I'm saying. And but oh, what the hell is this? Never really looked at this before. Ooh, this might be interesting. I'm not entirely sure. I have found a. Not entirely sure. I have found a one of those desert temples in here yet. But yeah, that was pretty interesting. And again, they covered some of the stuff, but theirs was a little bit. Again, I'm not kidding you. If you delve into this, buckle in because it's all over the place. One story's saying this. With the Atlantis story, there's not a lot of variation. Mainly with the variation you get is where it was, and like this one here, in at least two of the stories that I watched, they made it pretty clear that Atlantis was in the Atlantic between Gibraltar, Europe, and the Americas. And that matches up with what Randall Carson has said. I think it matches up with what Edgar Casey said, the sleeping prophet. And I think it matches up with what Graham Hancock has said. Even that guy from Gaia, I might be wrong, but I think he was even on that page. And it matches up with Pluto and others. And but now with Lemuria, it's all over the place. Like the one, it looked like it was centered between Australia, Africa, and India. And then one of the other ones was talking about how Easter Island, Hawaiian Islands, so that would put it farther north. And it wouldn't necessarily be the land bridge between Australia and Africa or Australia and Asia. It was all over the place. But some of the stuff where all of them were talking about, it all seems to match up with the Younger Dryas, kind of like the Atlantic stories, where hey, Pluto told us about this, Edgar Casey told us about this, and it was after they went on the record, it was after they said this that we found out about the Younger Dryas, that we found out about the flooding and the Bimini Road and all this other stuff. It's the thing by Cuba. They had already come out saying, yeah, Atlantis is here, this is what it was, and this, that, and the other thing. And the archaeological evidence seems to back that up. There we go. And So hey, it is what it is. But I'm just passing it on. But I found it fascinating. So that the Y-Files one on this, and this, it isn't telling me here. It's got 1.5 million views. I think it's a relatively newer one. And then the other one to watch, and again, some of this I thought was a little out of it, but I watched most of it, so I don't think it was as bad as I'm thinking it is now. But it was channel is Zohar Stargate Ancient Discoveries, and I've watched stuff from this before. I honestly think I prefer the Y Files more than this one, but I've watched stuff from them before. And from Lemuria to Atlanta, Edgar Casey's incredible of lost civilizations. I I'm not sure I really want to try and recreate this, but I think this here talked about. I think this here talked about some of the things about the Lemurians, about them not being human. This might have been one where they were talking about there were, more than one or two of these super races or advanced races or whatever. But that one there is a really good one to go check out. And then the other one that I watched, I'm trying to wrap this up here because I'm getting lightheaded and I really want to try and do a good video. But the other one is Our Hidden Connections to Atlantis, Lemuria, and Beyond. It's the spiritual warrior experience. I could be wrong. And if you go to this one, uh, it was a guy with, I believe, like a New Jersey accent, which kind of made him sound like the Jerky Boys a little bit. But what he was saying was great. Well, he was talking about a lot of good stuff, and one of the things I liked about it is I think he was the one, but I can't remember if he had glasses or not, but he was like at a podium and it looked like he was giving a lecture to people. One of the things he brought up about is there was some kind of a report back in 1912 that was given by somebody who was an expert or who had done the research, and it was being given to like some oceanographic society in England or something like that. And the transcript or the report that he had written, whatever it was being given by somebody who I believe worked at the Smithsonian, and it was being given to the scholars at the Smithsonian. And this whole article that this guy wrote back in 1912, it was talking about how people were starting to talk about Atlantis and they were starting to research it like it was a real thing. And that whole thing in there I thought was fascinating. You should, if you're interested in this at all, you should definitely check that out. But the other thing he did was he talked about the rumors or the mythology of these Lemurians, how they were not human. They were maybe fish people, and they didn't have a reproductive system like we did. And he started going and showing you the different cultures that had mythology or religions or whatever, where they talked about people coming out of the sea. Uh, and some of it was out of the Bible, but it was talking about some of these people that, like they were talking about these people in mythology or rumors or legends or whatever you want to call it to help you sleep at night. But they were talking about these people had sex organs of both sexes, male and female. And so they didn't reproduce like we did. And he showed you the statues where one statue had male and female parts on it. He showed you artwork from like 1,000 years ago where there was some kind of a creature with a serpent's tail that had a beard and breasts, showing, and he said showing that you had male and female parts. That was the gist of it. And that one there I found pretty interesting. And again, I don't know if any of this is true. I find it fascinating. But what if we find out this stuff is true? I don't know. I really don't know. But what if we find out the whole reason we're here is because some advanced culture treated us like a fucking agricultural experiment? They put us here like cows to see what would happen. And I think if that's absolutely true, I think if that's absolutely true, that maybe they're going to come back and be a little disappointed when they look at modern day civilization, where we're, instead of trying to better ourselves, we're trying to pollute the planet to burn up fuel oil, or so on and so forth. They might look at Marjorie Taylor Greene and her Jewish space lasers, and fucking Jim Jordan and the others corruptly using their government positions to attack somebody who's just got the audacity to make rich people pay a little bit more so they can help out poor people. Maybe they're going to come back and look at it and go, yeah, you people just don't live, you don't deserve to live anymore. We're going to like strike you guys. Maybe there'll be another flood. Maybe they'll wipe us out and they'll move on. And I'm not entirely sure we don't deserve it anymore. We got these mass shootings every day. It's sad. It really is. And then the thing I wanna basically go out with is this one here. I believe was out within the last day or two. The Hill Events is the channel. And I got issues with the Hill, but the girl that does these interviews, I think, is pretty good. And Representative Burchett from Tennessee, he was basically saying that he thinks they could keep doing UFO things in the current committee structure, but he has seen that there is pushback on them doing it. Like, and he repeated this. I've heard this story before. He wanted a little more detail on it, and it's on the Hill Events, and the title of it is Representative Burchett on if there will be more UFO hearings on Capitol Hill, UFOs and national security. And he said, I think we could do it through the existing committee structure. But he goes, I found out from you guys. It was the day of the event. And he goes, there were 4 or 5 of us in there kind of, putting our heads together, planning out what was going, getting ready for it. And he goes, we were finding out from you guys, from reporters, that they were going to put us into a committee room that was under construction. And his party's in charge. So this, again, I'm not saying the Democrats wouldn't have done anything different, but, this is his own party doing it, because they're in charge. So because I think we're going to have to do the select committee, and, he admitted that. And then the other video, and I have no idea if this is from the last few days or not. I didn't catch that. I honestly don't remember looking. But it's Representative Moskowitz. He's from Florida, and the title of it is Representative Moskowitz, UAP hearing almost didn't happen. The truth is out there, UFOs and national security. And again, it's that same reporter. And even though I think the Hill has some issues, she seems to be a pretty decent reporter. And he was basically saying, and again, I don't think he's on too much of a different page from Burchett in Tennessee. And that should tell you something, because these guys are like polar opposites if you get into their politics. But he isn't talking about, we should just throw some money at this. He goes, we need to get in there. We need to have these hearings. He goes, if they need to tell us stuff classified, he goes, I'm fine with that for right now. Burchett was saying we don't need classification. He wants everything turned over. He goes, most of that stuff. He goes, we've had these where we go in, we read what they give us, and he goes, they're just they either aren't telling us even in a classified setting, or there's just nothing in there that's that bad. He goes, they could there's a lot of stuff. He goes, I've seen in the skiff. He goes, they could release that. He goes, I don't see any reason for national security on a lot of that stuff. Maybe not all of it, but a lot of it. And but But he's basically, Moskowitz is saying that if, they've had these witnesses that have been called and told, well, we can't come in. We've been kind of harassed and encouraged not to come in, so we're not coming in now. And he goes, maybe we should start. He goes, we got people telling us, well, hey, go to Area 51, go to Groom Lake, go here, go to the Dugway Proving Grounds, and go there and do your on-site committee hearings. And he said, and he goes, we've got the security clearance, we've got the right to have our, he goes, we're not visiting, we're there officially as Congress doing our oversight role. He goes, I think we're going to have to. We're going to need to go to these places. And he goes, we're going to have to go in there. And if they refuse to let us in, he goes, then we'll have that on record. He goes, we should end up doing them right outside on the grounds. And he goes, if they try to stop us or if they don't, we will sit there. We'll do these hearings live on C-SPAN. Maybe the news will cover it. And then the military is going to have a spotlight on them. Why are you guys obstructing Congress? And he wasn't wording it this way. But so there might be, hopefully, some big stuff coming. I sincerely hope so. Well, I don't know if I'm going to get on and do I think I'm just going to keep putzing around with this for as long as I can. I cooked today, and I'm kind of glad I did. It was chicken and rice and some other stuff, but it hit me a little bit. And I just sat in here trying to recover. And then when I felt good enough to stream, it was late enough where I was only going to have a chance to do one. And I had something I wanted to talk about on the official UAP stuff I do on the Minecraft stream. So I wanted to do that. I hope everybody has a good day. I really do. Hope I have a better day tomorrow. Peace out. And I hope all of you have a great time.